Good evening, I'm Maciej, Mikos, and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. The US will not send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Friday's meeting between Presidents Trump and Zelenskyy raised more questions than answers, with another top-level Russian-American summit planned in Budapest. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Outrage in Germany after Poland refuses to extradite suspect in Nord Stream sabotage. Polish border guards discover underground tunnel used for illegal crossings from Belarus. And Icelandic experts are training Ukrainian soldiers in bomb defusing. Ukraine's high hopes before the Trump-Zelenskyy meeting in Washington were thwarted by the American president's phone call with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Our correspondent in Ukraine, Escalating, investigates whether Donald Trump's no to Tomahawks for Ukraine is only the beginning of negotiations regarding Kyiv's drones.
Well, as the dust settles after that high-stakes meeting between President Zelenskyy and US President Donald Trump, we now have more details about what has been described as a tough and at times emotional meeting between the two leaders. Now, of course, at top of the agenda, the key request from the Ukrainian leader was for the US to allow the sale of those long-range, much-discussed Tomahawk missiles. President Zelenskyy wanted those, was eager for the permission to be granted from President Trump, and this was why President Zelenskyy wanted those Tomahawks.
I think that Russians afraid about Tomahawks, really afraid, because it's a strong weapon, and they know what we have, what kind of weapon we have, our production, and they understand that combination with Tomahawks, because we speak about it. We don't speak about Tomahawks like Tomahawks. We need combination, and that's why they're afraid of this combination.
But the answer from the US president was no. No Tomahawks, at least for now. That's according to reporting from Axios. A 2.5-hour meeting between the two leaders, where one source described to Axios that Donald Trump was tough with President Zelenskyy. Also, some sources describing it as an emotional meeting between both men. Ended rather abruptly by the US president saying, "I think we're done. Let's see what happens after next week." Of course, referring to his potential meeting with Vladimir Putin in Budapest. So clearly what had seemed to be a trend of more support, of a warming relationship from Donald Trump towards Ukraine, potentially offering more support, that has now clearly been paused by the impact of that call with Vladimir Putin and ahead of a potential meeting. The perspective from the US president was that giving Tomahawks or selling Tomahawks to Ukraine could hurt diplomatic efforts to end this war. The US president, very clear, his priority is to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He feels like selling Tomahawks to Ukraine will make that worse. More to be discussed. It's President Zelenskyy not losing hope, but a difficult meeting in Washington. In Kyiv, I'm Maciej for TVP World.
The Trump-Zelenskyy meeting in Washington brought no major breakthroughs in the US support for Ukraine. With not Tomahawks on the horizon, there is a growing uncertainty in Kyiv ahead of the planned Budapest summit between the American president and his Russian counterpart. Anastasia Yanchenko has this report.
Russia launched at least 300 drones and missiles in another massive strike on Ukraine on Friday night. The attack came hours after US President Trump welcomed his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zhuravlyov at the White House. The two leaders discussed a possible transfer of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. The day before the meeting, Trump held a fresh phone call with Russia's Putin. The US and Russian presidents agreed to meet in Budapest. The call between both leaders appears to have pushed Ukraine further away from making a deal on Tomahawks, experts say.
And I think this is Putin signaling that nothing much is going to change, even though he's bought this 2 weeks for himself.
Putin said that it will mean escalation and will lead to worsening of Russian-American relations. It seems that Trump has got this message.
Right after the meeting, European leaders, together with NATO Secretary General, spoke with the Ukrainian president and reaffirmed their strong support for Ukraine, while calling for more pressure on Russia.
I reiterated our unwavering commitment to Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. The UK will continue to send humanitarian aid and military support.
One thing is absolutely clear. Europe's solidarity with Ukraine against Russia's aggression is today more important than ever before.
President Zelenskyy has the full support of Germany and our European friends on the path to peace.
During the meeting with Zelenskyy, the US president also expressed hope that the war be resolved through diplomatic means and the delivery of missiles could be avoided. However, Ukrainians themselves doubt that diplomacy will bring a quick and fair end to the war.
The world has been turned on its head. Nothing is as it seems. They say one thing and do another, but we, the people of Ukraine, are suffering under the shelling. Unfortunately, the world is ruled by force, so I believe that this war will end one way or another. Sadly, this will be achieved by force.
Ukrainian politicians believe that the key to peace lies in Europe.
I think that Europe also should be realistic on USA and understand that we together have also to do more, not to wait what USA that they can deal with Putin.
As long as Ukraine and Europe stick together, and the rest of Europe stick together, no one, neither President Trump nor President Putin, will be able to break them.
The meeting between Trump and Putin will take place in Budapest in the next 2 weeks. While it could bring a breakthrough in the war in Ukraine, it might just be another red carpet moment for Putin. For TVP World, Anastasia Yanchenko.
Volodymyr Zhuravlyov, the man suspected of sabotaging Nord Stream pipelines, will not be extradited to Germany. The Warsaw's court's ruling was as welcomed by the Polish government as it was criticized in Berlin. Paweł Trzaskowski reports.
The German authorities' request to extradite Volodymyr Zhuravlyov cannot be accepted.
The Polish court ruled that one of the suspects in blowing up the Nord Stream pipelines will not be turned over to Germany for trial, as acts of sabotage by Ukraine are justified in wartime.
By pursuing the goal of defending their homeland by all means possible, they weaken the enemy.
The Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2 pipelines bypassed Poland and the Baltic states, transporting Russian gas directly to Germany. 6 months after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they were allegedly sabotaged by a group of Ukrainian divers, according to the German prosecution. Volodymyr Zhuravlyov was wanted in the case by Berlin and was detained in Poland under the European arrest warrant earlier this month. His eventual release, says his lawyer, clearly demarcates lines in the war in Ukraine.
The court very clearly showed today who is the aggressor here and who is the victim.
The Polish authorities welcomed the verdict.
It's with great satisfaction that I heard a Polish judge say these very simple words. If a Ukrainian fights against Russia, he should be praised, not arrested.
The German authorities officially acknowledged the ruling.
A ruling has been made in Poland, which I respect because we recognize the court's independent decision.
However, discontent was expressed in other circles.
In respect of the outstanding success of our colleagues at the Federal Criminal Police Office in terms of the criminal investigation, the decision now made in Poland is a slap in the face for all involved in this case.
The far-right Alternative for Germany party is especially vocal about the case.
Recently, the AfD, which I don't think surprises anyone, flew into a rage and attacked me personally in a very brutal way, suggesting that I was behind the Nord Stream explosions.
And it was the AfD's leader who vowed to restore the gas flow during her bid for Chancellor this year.
And we will put Nord Stream back into operation. You can be sure of that.
But in Germany, support for the pipelines extends beyond the extreme right. Former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, now questioned in an inquiry into Nord Stream 2, still defends the construction, while Poland voices its opinion on the matter clearly.
The real problem was the construction of Nord Stream 2, not the fact it was blown up.
And so, even without Russian gas flowing through it, Nord Stream remains a bone of contention between Warsaw and Berlin. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
Polish border guard have uncovered an underground tunnel stretching for 20 meters across the border with Belarus. Now, this shows that Minsk has not abandoned its tactics of destabilizing NATO and the EU with illegal migration. Zuzanna Jurek reports on Europe fortifying its borders with Belarus and Russia.
What may at first glance look like a tunnel hollowed out by an animal is actually the latest sign of a hybrid warfare waged by Russia and Belarus against NATO's eastern flank. The outlet of the tunnel was uncovered by the Polish border guard some 20 meters into Polish territory near the northeastern village of Kondratki. The discovery comes amidst the ongoing migration crisis fabricated by the Minsk and Moscow regimes since 2022. The tunnel was meant to be used by illegal migrants to cross into Poland undetected. In response to the crisis, NATO's eastern flank nations moved to significantly fortify their borders. While Poland continues to work on completing its Eastern Shield project, Latvia too is moving to consolidate its border protection.
With construction going on along the entire eastern border, we'll definitely reach a point where practically no one will be able to cross undetected. Right now, patrolling is certainly the main way we ensure the security of the border. After the border infrastructure is completed, we will switch to early detection, as I've mentioned.
The upgrades on Latvia's border are part of the so-called Smart Border program and are carried out in cooperation with the EU.
We are supporting as much as we can financially, of course, also with Frontex being present if the member states want Frontex to be there. It can always be more, of course, but that's why our cooperation is so important.
In terms of what the fortifications will include, the Latvian Ministry of the Interior emphasizes the need to adapt to the new threats posed by Russia to NATO.
You've certainly heard about the initiative on improving various drone capabilities. And of course, in addition to this project, the Ministry of Defense is implementing anti-mobility measures along the entire length of the border. So in effect, there's also a very clear signal from the Commission that there will be support for drone technologies, support for their use on the border.
For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Amid an uncertain global economy and rising output from some of the world's biggest energy-producing countries, oil prices are trending lower. And with expectations of a big global surplus next year, prices could have further to fall. Maciej has more.
As global supply outpaces demand, the price of oil is trending lower. Global trade tensions and weakness across major economies, particularly in China and Europe, are impacting demand.
China, which faces economic slowdown, so they will be buying less, basically. We have also quite weak European industry, so demand in Europe will also be quite low.
And on the supply side, higher output from the world's biggest oil producers is creating a glut or a surplus of oil on the market.
We have almost record global production, not just from OPEC plus, but from United States, Brazil, Guyana, and shale producers have quietly hit new output records despite talk of restraint.
OPEC Plus, an international cartel of some of the world's biggest oil-producing countries, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the UAE, together with global partners like Russia and Brazil, has been ramping up production this year. It's raised output by nearly 3 million barrels a day so far this year, with another production hike set to take effect in November. At the same time, production in the U.S., now the world's single biggest oil-producing country, hit a record 13.6 million barrels this summer. Increased production could lead to a huge surplus of oil on the global market next year, in excess of up to 4 million barrels per day, according to the latest projections from the International Energy Agency. That's expected to drag prices lower, with the U.S. Energy Information Administration projecting prices will average $52 per barrel next year. Falling oil prices could translate to lower gas prices at the pump for millions of drivers around the world. But it stands to negatively impact economies that are heavily dependent on the export of oil, such as Russia.
Moscow's finances balance around $75 per barrel. Below that, the government must tap reserves or borrow more.
Today's declining oil prices are a stark reversal from the earlier part of the current decade, when the reopening of the global economy from the COVID-19 pandemic and later Russia's invasion of Ukraine drove oil prices to near record levels. The price of Brent crude, the benchmark for oil prices used in Europe, hit a peak of $125 per barrel in the early summer of 2022. It's been trending lower ever since, falling to just over $60 per barrel in recent days. With the supply of oil soaring amid lackluster global demand, prices may have further to fall in the coming months. Maciej for TVP World.
Some of the Iceland's top bomb disposal technicians are training Ukrainian soldiers in Lithuania. TVP World learned from the Icelandic Coast Guard's Chief of Operations. Our correspondent, Kazimierz Wysiak, visited their headquarters in Reykjavik and has this next report.
Iceland's Special Operations Unit, which falls under the Coast Guard, has some of the best trained officers, and they specialize in disarming bombs. While they mostly deal with unexploded ordnance from the Second World War here on the island, they also nowadays use their knowledge to train Ukrainians. TVP World got special exclusive access to the headquarters of the Coast Guard here in Iceland, and their Chief of Operations told us how they are sharing their experience with the Ukrainian soldiers defending their country.
We're on a regular basis with two people in Lithuania training Ukrainians for bomb disposal. And each year here we have a big exercise called Northern Challenge, which is NATO EOD IED exercise. It takes about 2 weeks, and it's one of the bigger ones within NATO.
The Icelandic Coast Guard has their hands full with monitoring trade routes and ships near the island. They are also on the lookout for any suspicious activity, like, for example, from ships from Russia's Shadow Fleet. There is also the interest of US President Donald Trump in acquiring Greenland and the opening of new trade routes in the Arctic on the account of the ice caps melting because of climate change. All of that is putting the region and Iceland on high alert. Some analysts are saying that the Arctic is now entering a new Cold War. This means that the Coast Guard here in Iceland has to be as vigilant as ever. From Reykjavik, Kazimierz Wysiak, TVP World.
As the annual Arctic Circle Assembly in Iceland's Reykjavik is coming to an end this Sunday, its participants from more than 60 countries agree that the security of the region is among the most pressing issues. Melting ice caps and China and Russia's growing activity in the region pose challenges NATO will have to address. And to discuss these issues, we're joined by our special guest, Admiral Giuseppe Capodragone, chair of the NATO Military Committee, joining us from Reykjavik. Good evening. So, Admiral, a container ship can now travel the Northern Sea route from China to England in only 20 days, mostly due to climate change. Now, from your perspective as the chair of the NATO Military Committee, what dangers can this pose to the alliance?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Well, the danger itself could be none if everything is kept under control. It could be a chance, an opportunity to have this kind of a new route available for goods coming to northern country, to let's say Rotterdam, whatever. The thing is that what NATO is aware of and wants to is just to keep all the routes free. Freedom of navigation, of course. Our sea line of communication must be open, and if the trafficking is under control, I don't see any harm or any danger.
Let me then ask this question differently. How highly do you rate the risk of the Arctic becoming another inflammatory spot on the global map? Now, could the conflict between NATO and Russia, along with its ally China, erupt rather in the Arctic than Europe or the Pacific region?
Well, what NATO is committed to is to safeguard this area with all the new event happening in the future. As I mean, new as you said, new routes, new way of communication. This is a free area, and we want to keep it that way. And there will be, I'm assuming there will be some confrontation. There will be some position that will put Russia and China in front of NATO, but we need probably to increase our presence over there, and we need to exercise the right level of deterrence, like we are doing right now, to fill the gap and to avoid any kind of exploitation of these future events, and to have the possibility to get free access to for minerals, for rare earth and gas, oil, LNG for the community, like it is right now and like it should be in the future.
Admiral, then, is NATO planning to send more troops to Iceland or to Greenland? And what sort of troops? Where from?
Okay, NATO is training in this area with all the troops. We have been doing exercises with more than 10,000 troops up in Norway, just to get accustomed to rigid climate. Let's say that in detail, Iceland its role in NATO is a good host nation for all the troops that are here permanently on a rotational base. For example, P-8, American P-8, or air policing interceptors, or for any kind of redeployment it could be necessary in case of something new arises. This country is going to be a force multiplier, a host nation with all the capability, all the infrastructures to host whatever is necessary, speaking about aircraft, but also ships, submarines, and also soldier, land troop, in case we need to redeploy them over here. So on one side we train them, we send them back home, and then we are available, the infrastructure here, the host nations with capital H, I would say, for them to be redeployed.
That's in case of the emergency. But, the Baltic Sea has already become the arena of intense hybrid conflict between Russia and NATO, with Moscow targeting Western undersea infrastructure. Now, how is NATO already countering this specific threat in the Arctic?
Yes, again, these hybrid activities sometimes are difficult to as far as the attribution. As you know, you have seen what has been happening in the past. But again, at the onset of this kind of problem, which honestly have increased in the numbers recently, NATO started a new operation. We call it Baltic Sentry, with the NATO nations providing ships to patrol and to monitor the Baltic Sea. As a matter of fact, since January, when Baltic Sentry started, there has been no other incident in our critical undersea infrastructures. This means something. This, I think, it's a good example of deterrence. We are having also, in this ground, we are trying also new, innovative forces. Unmanned vehicles, unmanned underwater and surface vehicle, just to be able to patrol, and on the other side to save, gray ship, warship from being used too much in this area. So with the unmanned vehicles underwater and above the surface, we are we got some testing very, very, very fruitful, that we can do that also with these new technologies, with new system that are also using satellites to have, a huge data transmission and maritime situation awareness.
Now, the Arctic is quite a tasty morsel for all major world powers with its natural vast resources that you have already spoken of, now, including, of course, these rare earth minerals necessary for the production of modern weaponry, such as US-made F-35 fighter jets. Now, given the recent trade tensions between Beijing and Washington, could the exploitation of the Arctic be a game changer in this conflict?
Well, the Arctic could be a game changer anyway. Of course, all the minerals and all the stuff you can find there is also for civilian, important civilian use. But again, it will be a confrontation ground. The thing is that if properly conducted, it would be, something that has been done also in other areas, with a confrontation remaining a confrontation without evolving in a kind of conflict and so on. But I'm expecting that this confrontation will be, important in these new areas.
And Admiral, lastly, one more, well, let's say controversial question, as we're talking about major investments in the Arctic. Now, almost every time a major strategic investment is on the horizon, environmental activists try to block it. Now, given the very nature of tensions over the Arctic, now, should the West even take such protests into consideration?
Well, I think that we need. We are a democratic nation, so we want and we have to, and we want to listen to everybody. We are able also to review our things that could be deemed appropriate, and just listen to, as I told you, to everybody. These at the stake now. There is the peace, freedom of navigation, balance, normal economic activities. So this has the potential to evolve in a conflict. This is true. So being able to send a strong message that we are, strong, that any kind of aggressive move from our counterparts would end up in a bigger disadvantage for them compared to what they could gain. This is the game in which we are involved, and this is the way deterrence must be exercised. And all movement that don't take into consideration this event, I think they don't have the real perspective and the real view of how the world is evolving.
Admiral Giuseppe Cavodragone, chair of the NATO Military Committee, joined us from Reykjavik, Iceland. Thank you very much, Admiral.
Thank you very much to you.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.